Welcome to this video about navigating the user interface. My name is Susan Delawyer. I've been in the Sage Intacct space for about 8 years, and I will take you on a trip here. The first thing we're going to look at is our applications menu. This home screen is the default for the entire system, but there's a way to update that. We'll look at that later. But some of the important areas here are the applications menu. This gives you access to all of the modules. So this is my demo environment, and it has multiple options. Within each user's experience, you do have the ability to change the layout of these just by simply dragging and dropping them. If I grab it, pull it. And these modules are only visible if a user has permissions. So if they have permissions to see this, and if they have administrative abilities, they can see, all versus setup. But essentially, these are just the shortcuts into each of the different module areas. So within each module, if we take General Ledger, for example, we have an all, which is all activities and reports. And then we have our setup menu. And our setup menu is essentially where configuration lives and some of the other data objects, their creation is generated from. And then we also have an overview. So if you click overview, it takes you to, a graphic, not a graphical representation, essentially a icon representation of the different points within that module. Each of these is able to be clicked into the different data points, but that is seldom used. It is just there if you want to be able to see an overview of kind of the workflow within the environment. That one is especially helpful in purchasing. So if you go to purchasing, when you click these, it shows you which of the different transactions are within each of these steps. So that can be kind of interesting to see how that flows. This one doesn't have a purchase requisition step, so that's why it's grayed out. So if we go back to our menu, we will see there is a combination of plus signs and words. Words can all be clicked into, and that will take you into the data object. If we click into that, here is our data point. We have items. We're going to see this add button up here at the top right that allows us to navigate into the creation of that item, but also we have a plus sign. So anytime we want to add to one of these data points and we have permissions to do so, we can either hit the plus sign or we can hit the word and then go to add. Both of those are very easy ways in order to get to those data points. If we go back to our home screen, there are two really helpful tools in this to navigate with. So we have a favorites bar, and this is going to be any of the application menu items that you want to be able to quickly get to. So if I go back to applications, I go into General Ledger, I see this empty star will appear next to an object. If I click the star, now I can see that that has now been added to my shortcuts. We also have bookmarks, and bookmarks are slightly different. So if I hit the plus sign from this, it is allowing me to pick any journal and directly enter a journal entry. However, if I go into the journal itself, I go into the general journal and I bookmark this. Actually, let me bookmark this one. So I'm going to bookmark this. And so now if I go back to my home screen and I go to that bookmark, this is going to take me directly into, no, I don't want to bookmark that, apologies. I'm going to go into my bookmark list and I'm going to click this, and then it takes me into a journal entry directly to the general journal. So we have both options depending on workloads. For individual users, you can, do a bookmark specifically to an approval entry, whereas the other one can give you, just favorited shortcuts to, general approvals. Just kind of depends on the purposes, but they both have a use case and they're really helpful. if we go into company and company information, so here we have the ability to order um, all of our applications. So we have, this is the default order, but again, every user gets to, play with their settings individually without affecting anyone else. But this can be the baseline for everyone. You can also set colors. So you can set the color for the top level, which we'll talk about here in a minute. But you can set those defaults. You can also set defaults for uh, the language, time zone, date format. All of these are ways that you can make the system a little bit more individualized. Each individual user can also update in their personal preferences. If the headquarters is in Eastern Standard Time and you have a teammate who's on Pacific, they can update their settings so everything they see is on Pacific, although the system will default to the company settings for anything that headquarters is running. All right. And then also another ability to set up preferences is going to be on the users. So as an administrator, I can set preferences for individuals, or they can always set their own preferences right here in my preferences under their user record. Some of the benefits of being in my preference, this is where we can choose not to start on that home page that I originally showed. It allows us to start an individual elsewhere. So if I want Dennis to start on a dashboard because it's more relevant to his work experience and what he's doing, I can come down here to personalize his start page. So we can pick a dashboard, we can pick the report center, but when we pick dashboard, we can pick a dashboard. So maybe he wants to look at the services dashboard. And then he wanted a different color. He wanted this, raspberry color. So he has different colors, and then he has his own order of the menu items. One tip I will give you also in this is these settings will default to 20 views at a time. You always want to set this to 999. When you're looking at a vendor list of 2,000, you don't want to tab through it 20 at a time. Setting it to 999 is going to give you 2 tabs so that you can look at them 999 at a time. So that is one of the shortcuts that you can set up in your new environment. So let's cancel out of here. And then entity versus top level. So right now we're at the top level. It does give us the ability to do journal entries, transactional information to all entities. But I do have various entities here that are available. Each user has the ability to set a different color. So if I wanted to make this one green, when I slide into this environment, it's going to pop out an extra tab. It looks like I'm sharing a full screen, but we can get back to that other tab here in a second. But here you can see this is my company I slid into. We have a green bar across the top that matches the color that I added onto the entity, so that I know when I see this screen, I know which entity I'm in. And from this level, I can work only on entity level information. So it's a really easy way to segregate information. The users can also be restricted by entities so that if they are restricted and they can only see this entity, then when they slide in or when they log in, they can only see this entity. They would never see the top level. You have to have permissions to see the top level, or you have to have permissions to multiple entities to see the top level. And then we also have the ability to go back to the top level. So here we've gone back to the top level. And whatever area you're open in, that will open in whichever entity you choose to enter. So that's just a quick overview of how to navigate through Intacct. We have lots of other information. Reach out if you have questions.